Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank all of you for being here and for your leadership service to our country. I wanted to ask, New Hampshire is facing a terrible epidemic of heroin and fentanyl that is coming over the southern border, and it's killing people in our states. And recently, the Senate passed what's called the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act to deal with the prevention and treatment side and some support for our first responders. But we know from prior testimony, both from our NORTHCOM and SouthernCom commanders, that the networks that are being used to traffic the drugs into our country also are networks that can be used to essentially traffic anything. And so I wanted to ask both you, Secretary Carter, and General Dunford, what can we do to get Southcom and Northcom the resources they need to tamp down on these networks that not only are killing people in our country, but also can be used networks to traffic other dangerous things into our country, including used by terrorist networks?
Well, I'll start, and then I particularly want the chairman to comment because he was just in the region, so he's fresh insight there. But the basic story is as you say, while we do everything here back home to try to protect ourselves from this scourge, we've got to try to interdict the chains of supply. And our forces in Southcom especially, but also Northcom, are a part of that. One of the reasons why I'm so committed to working with you up here on the Goldwater-Nichols revisit effort that the chairman and this committee have spearheaded, and I am doing also in the department and want to do with you, is because that is an area where your point, which is allocating resources among COCOMs in an agile, effective, and optimal way, that's where, from my point of view, I would like to strengthen the role of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the chairman, because different COCOMs see different things in their regions. They're all deeply expert in their own regions, but somebody needs to put it all together and give me advice about that, how to synchronize all those forces. I look to the chairman and the joint staff for that. I'd like to get for them to have more capability and authority to do so. I hope that's part of our effort. And with that, let me turn it over to the chairman, who just happened to be in the region last week.
Senator, I did, as the Secretary said, I spent last week on this issue. I visited Southern Command, visited our Joint Interagency Task Force, and then I went down to Columbia. And on the bright side, what I was encouraged by is the amount of information that we have, the amount of intelligence we have today far exceeds what we used to have. And if you look at the Joint Interagency Task Force alone, 15 different countries now sharing information intelligence. But what I found is that what we know far exceeds our ability to act on it from an interdiction perspective. So I saw exactly what you're alluding to, which was a shortfall of the resources necessary to interdict. And I came back with a much better appreciation of that. And frankly, what I've asked our team to do is to try to look, given all the challenges that we have and given all the competition for resources, I'm still not convinced that we can't find some innovative ways to address the interdiction. And at least if we took action on just the intelligence and the information that's currently available to the Joint Interagency Task Force. And the other thing, Senator, even in we have Joint Task Force Bravo. I think you're familiar with them. So while we've always had really a pretty good understanding of what's going on in the air and the sea, and increasingly better today, again because of both the interagency and the international cooperation. What I also found was our ability to see what's going on over land is also much greater than it was. And so what you're alluding to is I do think, and I came back with this, frankly, as something as a priority for me and the staff last week, coincidentally, was to come back and say, okay, we have all this information intelligence. I understand the competition for resources, but we have an imperative to actually do something about this. And frankly, I think you know it because you've looked at the issue. What I've seen the studies say is that about 40% of interdiction is kind of where you need to be. In other words, there's other things you have to do from prevention to treatment and so forth to deal with the issue. But if you get to 40% interdiction, that's kind of the contribution you can make at the interdiction level. We're probably half of that or below. And so my priority, and I'll come to the Secretary with some recommendations, is to try to get us as close to that 40% as we can. And again, if nothing else, to try to get us to the point where we're acting in interdiction predicting based on the intelligence and information that we have today. So again, not a solution to the problem, but encouraged by what we know, now we've got to do something about it. And of course, it's not just a DOD issue. The Coast Guard plays a huge role in that,
Right.
Department of Homeland Security and so forth.
Well, I appreciate hearing you say, General Dunford, you think it should be a priority based on your visit, because I remember also when General Kelly was commander of Southcom, he had talked to me at length about this, about that we had the information, we could see this stuff coming over, we just needed the additional resources to interdict it. And so I really appreciate your putting a focus on this, because we are, we need to do the work on the prevention and treatment. We're focusing on that, but the interdiction would be very significant because it's so cheap on our streets right now, and that will help drive up the cost. And also, we know that these networks are used to traffic, used by terrorists and others too, so it's important for our homeland security as well.
Senator, if I could, one follow-up. The other thing that I came back with is, kind of an imperative to keep our partnership capacity building efforts in the region going and funding those adequately as well, because, clearly we can't do it all ourselves. We don't want to do it all ourselves. In the investment that we make in the ability of others to support the interdiction effort, I think is also an important part of this.
Great, thank you.